What's happening, YouTube? It's your boy J Bond, and I'm back with another installment of This and That, which is my own little personal, little vlog series that I'm doing just to kind of give those viewers who are interested in seeing into the mind and the madness of this guy right here. I just periodically want to just touch bases and kind of give you a little bit more insight into how I see things on more of a personal and intimate level. I've had a few individuals that have asked me why do I tend to straddle the fence and not really give my own personal opinion so much when we dialogue. And I had to explain it's because I want to set the table for dialogue with others. If anyone knows me, I can talk to them blue in the face. So it's not necessarily like I need my platform to be my outlet. But I found that this is a way to kind of convey a more deeper message and to be able to give you a little bit more content and more substance that can delve a little bit deeper than just typing out long drawn out Facebook messages. So what I want to do here is I want to kind of just kind of share my thoughts and feelings on a situation that's near and dear to my heart, and it seems to keep cropping up. I've been having conversation uh, after conversation after conversation with individuals that, uh, at first glance and at the beginning of our conversation, just kind of don't get who I am at the core of who I am and why I do what I do. And so I want to touch on the topic, and once I share the topic, those of you that associate me with coaching is going to be like, aha, I get this one. Okay. So, one of the titles that I wear as a badge of honor proudly through my community and anywhere when anyone knows me is coach. And I explain to individuals that once you become a coach, it's kind of like a doctor. You know what I mean? As far as once you get your PhD or your MD, people have to call you doctor. Once you've coached and got some skin in the game and kind of helped do your part to uplift your community or whatever institution that you're working for, you kind of get the name coach. And if you're a good coach, it sticks with you. Okay. And so, one of the great things about being called coach is that people indiscriminately out in my community call me coach. I don't necessarily ever really introduce myself and say, hey, I'm Coach Mosby. But if the context is right, you're at the gym, you see me with my youngsters, then obviously you know me as coach. But I wanted to kind of share a little perspective with you individuals that care enough to hear the blah 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 is coming out of my mouth, because this is a pretty sore and very very touchy topic with me. Okay, so I'm gonna just jump right on in. For me, coaching is not just about wins or losses, and it's not even really about the game of basketball. It just so happens that the game of basketball helped to save my life, helped to preserve me in a very toxic environment, and helped me to stay out of harm's way for most of my adolescence. And then it also helped me as a very, very key tool keeping my younger cousins and my younger brother out of trouble when we were coming up with little to no guidance. And so, what I learned is that basketball is basically a means to an end. Okay. And so, if you've ever provided me with the privilege of coaching one of your sons or multiple sons, because I've had some families who have sent me multiple sons, two, three, four sons out of their stock of children, and I'm very, very humbled by it, and I take that charge very seriously. But if you've ever seen me in a coaching capacity, you know first and foremost that for me, I tell my players two things. One, we use the game of basketball just to reel you in. People think that we're coming here to play basketball, but we're going to play the game of life through basketball. And that's always been my goal with gathering these young men. And then the second thing that I tell them most often is after they've transitioned out of my basketball program, I tell them I may no longer be your basketball coach, but please allow me to be your life coach. If you see me on traffic, you need anything from me, you need just a shoulder to lean on, you need some perspective. If you need some light monetary compensation to kind of help you out with some things, then come see me before you make a bad decision. And so I carry this mantle of being a coach as being a community leader. Um, Actually, basketball and coaching is probably my what do they call it? My ministry. Okay. And so when I've been speaking with a couple of people, I've been kind of apprehensive about really sharing all my thoughts and views about basketball and coaching. And this came up quite a bit because now schools are allowed to start creating teams and sending them to the city leagues to play basketball. And so one of the things that I didn't really share with a lot of people is that COVID robbed from me, among other things, you know, my basketball soul, my coaching soul. Prior to COVID, I had been coaching through this program for 4.5 years, and COVID came and hit and took half a year from us, and then a full next year that we were quarantined and outside of the public light from me. So I would have had 6 years deep in this coaching experience, but COVID took approximately a year and a half from me. But one of the things that I really, really struggled with was not being able to coach those 1.5 seasons. One, because our season got cut short, and we were in the midst of really, really learning some real important life lessons through the game of basketball. And all four of my teams were very, very successful in their own right. I coach a program that involves four teams. I have a sixth grade team, I have a seventh grade team, I have a seventh and eighth mix, and then I have an eighth grade team. And so every year I'm entrusted with the free time of 40 young men, and I take that charge very seriously. And so for me, the way that I approach picking these young men really has nothing to do with their basketball skills or aptitude. The program that I inherited wasn't really one where we had a bunch of ready-made ballers in the first place, right? We had a bunch of young guys who were hustlers and played baseball and soccer and did other things athletics wise, but basketball was low on their totem pole. And so when they came to us, they had really, really low skills, which is great because it fits my greatest skill set, which is fundamentals. And so what I realized out the gate is that these young men needed to learn the game of basketball from a fundamental standpoint. And once I realized that they were not just coming to me with limited basketball skills, but also limited life skills, it made perfect sense to just marry the two. And so one of the things that is the gift and the curse for me, based on my childhood, is that I am the type of individual that's able to see other broken children, right? It has a lot to do with the fact that I was a broken child myself, and I can kind of see a lot of the signs. But then there's also this intuitiveness that I have within me that also helps me out in the classroom. I can stand side by side with one of my peers and peer into a young man or a young woman and pretty much see with a great deal of accuracy whether or not they're dealing with internal and external struggles outside of things that they're willing to share with the general public. And so it didn't take but one season for me to realize that the goal is not to harvest basketball players or to go out and recruit and try and get some of the best basketball players in the surrounding community to play. What I did starting with the second year of taking over the program full time on my own was I started looking for young men who basketball could provide them with a physical outlet so they could process and get rid of a lot of their negative feelings and a lot of their aggression. But then also it's became a breeding ground for me to show young men how to either become good leaders or to become good followers. And so, for any of you that's ever been in a leadership position, perhaps you've heard this saying before. I believe I first came across it from Dr. Earl Monroe, I believe is his name. If it's not his name, excuse me, but I know his last name is Monroe, and he came up with a saying that in order to be a good leader, sometimes you have to learn how to be a good follower as well. And I've always carried that with me. And so one of the things that I infused into the program immediately was taking these young men who had these issues outside of basketball and showing them how to redirect all that negative energy into something positive. But then also, once they become comfortable with me, they share with me things that are outside of their realm of control. And the next step is to kind of help provide them with resources, if at all possible, but then also providing them with an opportunity to hear from a been there, done that kind of perspective, and to kind of help them to realize that it's not their fault that they're in whatever particular situation they're in, but what they should be doing is trying to do the best they can with the things they can control and allowing the things they can't control to play out. And so for me, basketball's never been about X's and O's. And so, this is one of the things that I really, really have been drawn to. It's something that I've even become obsessed with to a certain degree, year in and year out, taking on 4 teams, coaching 3 games a day, in some instances, and sometimes 4. And when it comes to the city league and then the tournaments and things of that nature, coaching my butt off just to show these young men that I am committed to them just as much as I want them to commit to me. And so when COVID took this away from me, it was really, really tough. And I went into a depression, which most people that I've spoken to have identified something that having to be quarantined and taken away from the general public kind of put them in that type of tailspin. But for me, I draw a lot of my validation. I draw a lot of my self-esteem, a lot of my self-worth, a lot of pride, XYZ, from the impact that I have on young people. And I see it, I recognize it, I carry it with kid gloves. I make sure that I'm very, very conscientious and cognizant of my impact on young men. And so before COVID, became a cyclical part of my life. Every year, I could count on 6 or 7 months worth of coaching to kind of help build me up and to kind of smooth out some of the rough edges that other aspects of my life that I, have had to deal with the struggles and ups and downs of that. It kind of helped me to kind of clear my mind of those things as well. So that year and a half being off was really tough, and especially seeing the young men in the community and them asking me, if I'm going to come back and coach, and saying, do I think that they're going to let us play the following year after our year got cut right there at the tournament, right there when 3 of the 4 teams were in championship games or on their way to championship games in the Rotary tournament. And so it was tough to tell them I didn't know. And then we spent a whole another year with no basketball. So fast forward to November, we get the notice that the city is going to once again open up and have a city league this year. And so I was very, very excited. But to make a long story short, there's some extenuating circumstances, some things that just didn't line up. And so I'm not able to coach this year to the capacity that I would want to. And so for me, it's important for me to do things the right way, especially with something that I cherish and I care so much about. There's no way that I would half-ass it. There's no way that I would go about going into this season, even though there's all these restrictions and these things that we kind of have to adapt to. There's no way that I would shortchange these young men that would show up undoubtedly by not being able to put my all into it and not being able to run the program the way that we ran it the last 5+ years. And so once again, I had an emotional roller coaster, and I didn't even really realize that it was bothering me until I just had a down day. And usually I don't have down days for the most part. I'll have some challenging days, but I'm able to kind of find ways to kind of push myself back down the straight and narrow and to finish the day strong. But the day that the actual paperwork for the registration was due was the day that I had a really, really low point, and I really couldn't pinpoint for myself what it was that had me so down. I mean, it literally was weighing on my spirit because by the time the deadline had came, I knew I wasn't going to be able to opened up and run the program for a myriad of reasons. I won't really get into those unless you guys comment and ask what, the different things that kind of made it difficult for us to function in the capacity we've done for the previous years. But so then I get these individuals that come across me, out in the community, like, hey, coach, it's time to get back in there. Are you ready? I want to send my son. We haven't heard anything. I got people sending me messages to my Facebook, asking, are we going to have team when there's tryouts, et cetera, et cetera. And it really started weighing on me. But I kind of thought I pushed it, and compartmentalized it somewhere deep in this cavern of nothingness that I can develop inside, just to kind of escape from having to deal with harsh realities. But that day, it literally zapped me. I woke up that morning feeling very heavy, feeling very emotionally drained. And, I pulled myself together, went to work. I feel like I taught my butt off. Students didn't ask me anything about my day, or was I okay, or they didn't make any mention of anything, feelings different coming from me, but I could just feel it for myself. And I had to do a lot of masking that day. And I even said, I just don't understand why I'm having a bad day, but I feel like I'm going to figure it out. And then a day or two later, it dawned on me, and I was like, oh, that was the day. That was a deadline. All these things that I thought I could tuck away came crashing down on me. And so now I'm faced with seeing people in the community that are asking me about coaching, and I have to tell them, hey, well, I can't coach this year. And so they're curious and they want to know why. And so, I've been very candid with them. But then I also have the school that I teach at, that has been members of the faculty and staff, even the administrators this year, and the students every year were trying to encourage me to coach for the school that I teach at currently. And although I've always been flattered by the amount of individuals that have been like, hey, why don't you come coach for us? I've always humbly as I could explain to them that my heart is in the community in which I live in, the program in which I helped to turn around from the ground up, the countless young men that I know I've positively impacted, the individuals that I've seen. And since I'm going on 6 years, I have some young men that are now graduates of high school, and I see them in the community gym playing ball. And, they still call me coach. They still help to revitalize me and to keep me young at heart, because now they figure they could beat me because they're 18, 19, and what have you. So our dynamic has changed a little bit, but I'm able to show them a lot more of who I am as a man, that, talking to a sixth or seventh or eighth grader, there's still a certain level of restraint that my coaches and I have had to deploy on them, just because of the age appropriateness. And so I have individuals at my place of employment asking me to coach, and even students in the class asking me to coach. And I explained to them that, I'm not going to be coaching for the school that I've been coaching at the last few years. And immediately they're like, oh, great, come coach us. We want to play for you. And, so then I feel even worse about it, because, I wouldn't have a problem with coaching them. I, treat them the same way I treat my players at the basketball program, with the utmost respect and care. And my purpose is to help them get a little bit better academically, speaking for the students. But on the basketball court, my goal is to help them get just this much better each day that they're around me. That's one of our mottos, like, let's just get this much better. And so I've been having to tell them, hey, I can't do that, because my loyalty and the origin of my community respect comes from those families that have sent me their sons and their nephews over the last 4 or 5 years. And there's no way that me telling them out in traffic, out in public places, that I'm not coaching for the program this year because I can't. There's no way I would allow myself to be in a position where they see me coaching another team this year, especially since it's been 2 or 3 years that I've been teaching I've been at the school I'm currently at 3 years, and their players for all 3 years have asked me to come coach for them, even at the venues where my teams were at, right in front of the teams that I coach. And I've always told them, like, these are my guys right here. And so to me, I don't live my life worried about letting other people down because you can't please everybody. But there are individuals that absolutely pour into me, and I care about them. And to whatever degree we're beholden to one another, I respect my position in their life forever, for however long I'm in their life. And so there's no way that I would even let one parent, one cousin, one uncle, one aunt, or one of those players walk into one of the gyms and see me coaching another team. But when I have spoken with a couple of individuals about it, they can't seem to make that connection. Like, in their mind, they're like, it's coaching. Like, you can't coach that team. And we get it for whatever reasons. It's like out of your control. We get it. But here's another group of boys that you can bring your show on the road and help them to benefit in the same ways that the other young men in your community. But again, I don't think that they quite understand what my mission in life is. My mission in life is to help as many young men and women that grow up in with extenuating circumstances and have little to no self-esteem, or little to no resources, or little to no support, that are struggling and trying to find a way to make it through while keeping on this smile in the face of the whole world, because the whole world that they live in outside of this public context is falling apart. My job is to find them and to show them that they can make it through that, and they can come out on the other side looking like me. There's some individuals that make terrible decisions based on their upbringing, go to jail, and then they come back and, yes, they paid their debt to society and they have some life experiences to try and impart on young people. And they say, hey, don't be like me, do this, do that. And, I'm not saying that that doesn't work, but for me, I've always felt like taking the street route and doing bodily harm to people, or taking out your frustrations on innocent people because of your circumstances, no matter how much of a victim of circumstance you are, I always felt like that's a cop out. Like, it's too easy to go and to victimize somebody else because you've been victimized, and then to say that that's just the way it is. But I struggled my whole life trying not to be like those individuals. And so for me, I want young people to see a little bit of themselves in me. That's why I coach, is because that gives me a platform or a medium or a space to be face to face with these young people. And then from there, everything that I've endured my whole life prepares me for how to interact with them, how to tap into them, how to help build them up, how to help them start seeing within themselves what us as adults can see within them, giving them options, giving them strategies, giving them confidence, giving them a way to stay in the game, even when the game is out of control and they have no way to mitigate the circumstances. Like, I have those kinds of relationships with these young men, and to have their parents, sometimes even their fathers, even in some instances, having fathers come up and talk to me about how much of an impact I've had on his son, is such a humbling experience, right? And so now every day it seems like I'm having a conversation with someone who is trying to encourage me to coach in some other format or some other school or some other team. And I feel like every time I start talking to them, it's as if I'm suffocating, as if like just their thought of me just being able to just move on and just insert myself into any and every basketball program just takes away what I breathe. I breathe my basketball program, right? These young men that I handpick, that I select, right? They help to revitalize me every day. They give me something to get up and to feel grateful for, and to feel focused for, and to feel inspired to inspire, right? And so it's just very difficult having these surface level conversations with individuals that just don't get it, right? So it's one thing for you to come up and say, hey, okay, you like coaching, why don't you coach here? And I say, you know what? It's not that simple for me. Okay, well, why isn't it that simple? It seems that simple for me. Well, because of this and this and this, and because I have this that I'm committed to, right? Anything beyond that, I feel like we're talking in a foreign language, because as I'm trying to explain in a way I'm explaining to you folks who's listening to this point, it's like it goes over their head. They just don't get it. And that's just so frustrating to me, right? And so this is something that's really been weighing on me, especially we're on winter break right now. And once we return to school, the first week of actual city league games are going to take place. I guess, the silver lining is that I always support the teams of the schools that I work at, right? And the old rule was that, hey, only time that I'm not going to root for my students who I teach is the week in which they play the players that I coach. Aside from that, I support volleyball, I support basketball, I support flag football. And so I told the students that, hey, you know what, I'll be out there to watch every game that I can get to and to support you. Excuse me. And so, that's the silver lining, because at least I'll be able to be there and support them from an educational mentor standpoint, right? It's always encouraged in the realm of education to go out and do some extracurricular activities with students, or to go out and support the students when they're out doing extracurricular activities, such as youth sports. And so it'd be good to be in the stands, rooting, hooting, hollering, coming back in that week and talking about the wins and the losses and who did what and what have you. But I don't know how I'm going to be able to make it through um, this season, knowing that I'm not going to be out there, leading the charge with my boys. Some of them were sixth graders on my sixth grade team when COVID struck, and our sixth grade season got cut at the end when we were in championship form. And so I know many of them have been looking forward to coming back and being on my eighth grade team and seeing what we can do. So I don't know how emotionally I'm going to make my way through this, but I always do, right? So this is not a plea for help. This is not a attempt for someone watching this to give me some words of encouragement to help me through. I think the process of me just talking it out and just being able to allow the words to, pass from my lips to whoever's ears who are listening should be enough, for me. But I just say that to say what I would hope that you all could take from this particular little story that I'm telling you, this little bit of perspective that I'm sharing, is that although we want to be helpful, and many of us like to sit and listen to our friends, relatives, loved ones, complete strangers, coworkers, and see how we can be of help. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen to a person, right? Sometimes whatever it is that you're going to offer up as perspective is not necessarily going to help that person through that. But sometimes just being able to listen, being that sounding board, is enough, right? And so, what I want to leave you all with, as a little revelation that I had about this experience, is I think that we should never let someone grade our effort if they don't even understand our assignment. Okay, so I'll say it again. You should never let someone grade your effort or evaluate your effort in something if they don't even know what your assignment is, because there's no way that they can adequately and accurately give you a true assessment if they don't even know what you are even built to do, or what you've been assigned to do, or what you've been bred to do. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for listening up to this point. For those of you who I've had the privilege of coaching one or many of your sons, thank you for that honor. Thank you for being there and making sure they were there and supporting me and allowing me to put my hands on them and to kind of impart wisdom and knowledge and all those good things that we did in our run through basketball. All right. Until next time, thank you, folks.